Hello, my dear. Take one slow breath with me, because the Ten of Cups appearing before us today is not just a card. It is a mirror. The Ten of Cups carries the symbol of emotional completion, sacred union, and the quiet kind of happiness that does not need to perform for anyone. And I know, deep in your heart, you have wondered whether this kind of love was still meant for you. You have asked yourself in silence, did I ask for too much? Was I too difficult? Should I have been softer, smaller, easier to choose? But today, something in this message comes to correct that wound. You were never asking for too much. You were asking the wrong people, and there is one man, one destined husband, whose spirit will not be frightened by the crown on your head. He will not ask you to lower it. He will rise until he can stand beside you. But before I reveal the sign that proves he is moving toward you, I need you to understand something very important. Your standards were not created by pride. They were created by experience. They were shaped by every night you had to comfort yourself, every promise that was not kept, every time someone enjoyed your softness but refused to protect it. Psychology tells us that boundaries are the language of self-respect. But spiritually, boundaries are also gates. And not every man is permitted to enter the garden of a woman who has finally remembered her worth. The Ten of Cups shows a home, a heart, a union that feels safe. But this card is not telling you to run toward any man who offers pretty words. It is asking you to notice who brings peace to your nervous system, who makes consistency feel natural, who does not punish you for having standards. There is a moment coming when you will realize, I do not have to convince him how to love me. And when that moment happens, your whole body will soften. You will not feel the old panic. You will not feel the need to chase. You will simply feel recognized, because your destined husband will not compete with your strength. He will honor the woman who survived without becoming bitter. And very soon, I will describe the first way he rises to meet you. Is not through pressure, not through loud promises, not through the kind of pursuit that feels exciting for a moment but leaves your spirit tired afterward. He rises through consistency. And now, with the Three of Pentacles before us, this message becomes even clearer. Because the Three of Pentacles is not the symbol of a man who only dreams about love. It is the symbol of someone willing to build. Someone willing to learn the structure of your heart. Someone willing to show up in the small places, not just the emotional moments that make him feel inspired. This is important, my dear, because the love that is coming toward you will not need to overwhelm you in order to convince you that it is real. It will not come rushing in, only to disappear when responsibility appears. It will not make your nervous system feel like you are standing at the edge of something unstable, waiting for the floor to fall out beneath you. No, this man will rise by becoming steady. He will call when he says he will call. He will explain instead of leaving you to guess. He will not punish you with silence because you asked for clarity. And when he feels your boundaries, he will not treat them like rejection. He will understand that those boundaries are sacred gates. He will not try to climb over them. He will not try to charm his way around them. He will stand there with patience, with respect, with emotional maturity, until your spirit feels safe enough to open. That is how a man rises, not by forcing access, but by proving that your peace is safe with him. And this may feel unfamiliar at first, because some of you have known men who loved your warmth, but did not protect your heart. They wanted the garden, but they did not honor the gate. They wanted your softness, but they did not understand what it cost you to remain soft after everything you survived. So, when consistency finally arrives, your body may not recognize it immediately. You may wonder, why is this not making me anxious? Why do I not feel the need to chase? Why does peace feel so quiet? And that quiet is not emptiness, it is safety. The Ten of Cups showed us the home, but the Three of Pentacles shows us the building of that home, brick by brick, promise by promise. action by action. Before you recognize him by romance, you will recognize him by this. Your body will stop preparing to be abandoned, and that is when the shame begins to loosen. Because for so long, you may have thought that your standards were the reason love became difficult. You may have heard it in someone's tone. You expect too much. You make things complicated. You need too much reassurance. But my dear, wanting emotional maturity is not asking for too much. Wanting clarity is not asking for too much. Wanting loyalty, protection, and a love that does not make you beg for basic respect is not asking for too much. It only feels like too much to someone who was hoping you would accept too little. And now, with the lunar eclipse appearing reversed before us, there is something hidden being brought back into the light. Not as a prediction, as a mirror. Because an eclipse can symbolize the moments where your truth was covered, where you doubted what you knew, where you silenced your own discomfort because you did not want to seem difficult. And reversed, this card feels like the shadow beginning to lift, the old confusion beginning to loosen its grip. You are starting to see that your standards were never walls built from bitterness. They were wisdom built from survival. They were your heart saying, I cannot keep choosing what breaks me. They were your spirit saying, I have already learned this lesson. The mind remembers patterns. The spirit remembers promises that were spoken beautifully but broken quietly. And the heart, after enough disappointment, learns to listen differently. So no, you are not guarded because you are cold. You are discerning because you have been awake inside situations where love should have protected you, but instead made you feel alone. And the man who is truly meant to rise will understand this. He will not look at your carefulness and call it damage. He will not accuse you of punishing him for another man's mistakes. He will understand that you are simply watching to see whether his character can hold what his words are claiming. Because words are easy. Admiration is easy. A man can admire a queen from a distance and still not have the strength to live beside her. He can love the idea of your crown and still feel uncomfortable when your standards ask him to mature. But the one assigned to you will not only want access to your heart, he will recognize the responsibility of being allowed near it. Because there is a difference between a man who is attracted to you and a man who is assigned to meet you with honor. And now, with the Three of Swords before us, we are being shown something tender, something honest. This card carries the image of the heart that has been pierced by words, by absence, by promises that sounded beautiful but did not have roots. And maybe this is why you became careful. Not because you stopped believing in love, but because love, when it came through the wrong hands, felt too much like pain. So now, when someone says, I want you, your spirit listens deeper. It asks, but can you honor me? When someone says, you are different, your heart asks, but are you willing to become different too? Because many men can be attracted to your beauty. Many men can be drawn to your softness, your mystery, your strength, the way you carry yourself like a woman who has been broken but not defeated. But attraction alone is not destiny. Attraction can notice your light. Assignment knows how to protect it. The wrong man may want the warmth of you without the responsibility of respecting what you have survived. He may want your laughter, your body, your comfort, your prayers, your loyalty. But when your standards ask him to become consistent, to become honest, to become emotionally present, something in him may pull away. Not because you are too much, but because your presence exposes what he has not yet healed. A queen does not have to shout to reveal a man's capacity. Her standards do that quietly. Her peace does that quietly. Her refusal to abandon herself does that quietly. And this is where your destined husband begins to look different. He may feel challenged by you, yes, but he will not feel threatened. He will not try to make you smaller so he can feel bigger. He will not ask you to soften your truth just because his ego is uncomfortable. Instead, Your presence will call him upward. It will call him into discipline, into emotional depth, into integrity. The Ten of Cups is not a fantasy built on chemistry alone. It is a vision that requires maturity. A home cannot be built by a man who only loves you when you are easy to hold, and his rising may begin quietly. Before you see grand gestures, you may see small corrections, a more honest conversation, a clearer intention, a choice to stay present where others disappeared. Because the next clue is not in what he says when everything is easy. It is in what he does when your standards require him to become accountable. And accountability is where many connections begin to reveal what they are made of. Because when you stop over-explaining, something changes. When you stop giving more just to keep someone from drifting away, something becomes visible. When you stop lowering your voice, your needs, your standards, just to make a man feel comfortable, the truth has room to speak. And now, with the Seven of Wands appearing reversed before us, there is a very tender message here. This card can symbolize the exhaustion of always having to defend your place, always having to explain why you deserve respect, always having to prove that your boundaries are not an attack. And reversed, it feels like the moment you finally lower the weapon you never wanted to carry. Not because you are surrendering your worth, but because you are no longer fighting to be understood by people who benefit from misunderstanding you. My dear, you do not have to argue someone into emotional maturity. You do not have to plead for consistency. You do not have to keep presenting evidence that your heart is valuable. The wrong man will become irritated when you stop abandoning yourself, because he may have been comfortable with the version of you who explained too much, forgave too quickly, waited too long, and made his confusion feel less costly. But the right man will not be offended by your self-respect. He will become more careful with you, more present, more aware that your peace is not something he gets to disturb, and then call you dramatic for feeling it. You will notice this in simple ways. You will wait for clarity instead of chasing after mixed signals. You will ask for consistency instead of accepting confusion, as if confusion were love. You will watch his actions instead of becoming hypnotized by promises that have not yet become behavior. And no, this is not you playing games. This is not you being cold. Life has already tested you enough. You are not testing him to punish him. You are allowing love to arrive with proof. And the man who is truly rising will feel that. Something in his spirit will pause. He will realize that he cannot approach you with half-truths and expect full access. He cannot bring boyish energy to a woman who has already learned how to stand alone. And there will be one moment, quiet but powerful, when he understands that loving you requires him to leave behind the boyish version of himself. And that version of him may not disappear in one dramatic moment. It may leave quietly, through a decision he makes when no one is watching, through the way he begins to think before he speaks, through the way he starts to understand that love is not proven by wanting a woman. It is proven by becoming safe enough to be trusted by her. And now, with the Ace of Pentacles before us, there is a beautiful symbol here. This card carries the energy of something real being placed in the hand, not just a feeling, not just a wish. Not just the kind of emotion that rises quickly and fades when life asks for effort. The Ace of Pentacles speaks of an offer that can grow roots, something grounded, something patient, something that has the possibility to become a home if it is honored correctly. And that is what is shifting inside him. He begins to understand that a queen does not need a man to complete her image. She is already whole before he arrives. She has already survived without his rescue. She has already learned how to hold herself when no one else knew how. So he cannot come in as if he is saving you. He must come in ready to meet you in truth. And that requires responsibility. It requires emotional language. It requires the spiritual courage to say, I was wrong, or I want to understand you, or I do not want to repeat what hurt you before. This does not mean he is perfect. No, my dear. A destined husband is not a flawless man. He is a man willing to grow where love reveals he still has growing to do. He becomes more intentional with his words, more careful with the promises he makes, more aware that your heart is not a place for careless hands. And slowly, his love begins to look less like control and more like stewardship, less like possession and more like protection, less like, how do I get her? And more like, how do I honor what has been entrusted to me? That is the difference. The Ten of Cups is not built by two wounded people using each other as medicine while refusing to heal. It is built by two souls who are willing to become honest, willing to become steady, willing to become safe. And you are not waiting for a man to save you. His rising is simply proof that your self-worth has changed the kind of love that can reach you now. But before this union can fully appear, something from your old pattern must finally lose its power over you. And that old pattern may not look like danger at first. It may look like familiarity. It may sound like I have felt this before. It may feel intense, magnetic, almost impossible to ignore. But my dear, not everything that pulls on your heart is meant to keep it safe. And now, with the Six of Cups before us, we are being brought gently into memory. Not to live there, not to return to what hurt you, but to understand why certain kinds of love felt so familiar even when they were not peaceful. The Six of Cups can speak of the past, the younger self, the tender places, the part of you that once learned love through waiting. Waiting for someone to choose you. Waiting for a message. Waiting for warmth after distance. Waiting for the small sign that maybe this time you mattered enough. And when a heart has waited like that for too long, it can begin to confuse anxiety with chemistry. It can confuse uncertainty with passion. It can confuse emotional distance with depth. Because the nervous system does not always chase what is healthy. Sometimes, it chases what is familiar. So if peace once felt unfamiliar, chaos may have felt like connection. If consistency once felt rare, mixed signals may have felt exciting. If tenderness was something you had to earn, then a steady love may feel strange when it arrives freely. And this is why your destined husband may not trigger the same panic. He may not make you check your phone with a tight chest. He may not make you read every word like there is a hidden meaning behind it. He may not make you wonder whether you were too honest, too emotional, too available, too much. He may feel almost too steady at first, almost too calm, almost too simple for a heart that once learned to survive inside uncertainty. But do not mistrust peace just because it does not perform like the old wound. Do not reject safety because it does not arrive with the same rush as being unsure. Sometimes God, destiny, the universe, will send love in a form that does not awaken your survival instincts. A love that does not make you earn every soft moment. A love that does not ask your younger self to keep proving she is worthy of staying. And that is when you will understand. The real challenge will not be whether he can rise. It will be whether you can receive a love that no longer asks you to suffer for it. And receiving that kind of love will require a different kind of courage. Not the courage to survive. You already know how to do that. Not the courage to walk away. You have learned that too. But the courage to stay open without abandoning yourself. And now, with the Eight of Swords appearing reversed before us, there is a quiet release happening. This card can symbolize the mind that once felt trapped. The thoughts that circled around pain. The fear that said, if I open again, I may lose myself. The fear that said, if I trust again, I may be made a fool. And reversed, it feels like the bindings are loosening. Not all at once, but enough for you to realize that your heart does not have to live inside a locked room just to remain protected. My dear, keeping your standards does not mean becoming unreachable. It does not mean every man must be treated like the last wound. It does not mean your crown has to become armor. A queen does not lower her crown, But she also does not hide behind it when someone sincere approaches with reverence. There is a balance your spirit is learning now. Discernment must stay alive. But so must tenderness, because your softness was never the problem. Giving it to unsafe people was the wound. Your loyalty was not the problem. Offering it to those who did not know how to protect it was the lesson. Your depth was not the problem. Pouring it into shallow places is what left you tired, and the man who is truly meant to rise to meet you will not demand instant access to the deepest parts of you. He will not say, "Trust me," while giving you no reason to feel safe. He will create safety over time, through patience, through honesty, through the way he does not rush what deserves to unfold gently. And this is where the garden returns. Boundaries are gates, yes, but gates are not meant to stay closed forever. They are meant to open for the one who comes with clean hands, steady feet, and a heart that understands where he is standing. Receiving him will ask you to be present, not performing, not chasing, not defending your worth before he has even questioned it. Just present, soft enough to feel, wise enough to observe, strong enough to remain yourself. And when he finally steps closer, there will be 3 signs that show you he is not just interested in you. He is prepared for you. And prepared love does not arrive empty-handed. It arrives with evidence. Not evidence you have to beg for. Not evidence you have to chase. Evidence that appears because his heart understands that love must become behavior. And now, with the 8 of Pentacles appearing reversed before us, there is a very clear mirror. This card can symbolize effort, practice, devotion. The willingness to keep showing up until something becomes strong. But reversed, it asks a deeper question. Is someone truly building with you? Or are they only doing enough to keep access to you? Because there is a difference. A man can make a small effort when he feels you pulling away. A man can say the right thing when he senses he may lose you. A man can become attentive for a moment and still not be prepared to love you with consistency. So the first sign is clarity. He does not make you beg to know where you stand. He does not hide behind confusion and call it timing. He does not keep you emotionally waiting while enjoying the comfort of your presence. When he is prepared, his words begin to have structure. His intentions become visible. You are not left trying to translate mixed signals into hope. The second sign is that he protects your peace even when his ego is uncomfortable. This matters. Because a man who only loves you when you agree with him does not yet know how to honor a queen. But the man who is rising will listen when something hurts you. He may not understand it immediately, but he will not mock it. He will not dismiss it. He will not punish you for having a feeling that asks him to grow. He will care more about repairing than winning. And the third sign is that he thinks beyond desire. He does not only ask, "How can I have her now?" He begins to ask, "What kind of life would make her feel safe?" He considers your future, your peace, your rhythm, your heart. He does not treat you like a moment. He treats you like someone whose trust has meaning. And when these 3 signs begin to appear together, clarity, protection, and future-minded love, you will understand why every door that could not honor you had to close. Because the 10 of Cups was never asking you to accept a half-built home. It was asking you to wait for the love that knows how to build with both hands. And the final message is not only about him rising to meet you. It is about why you were never meant to shrink in the first place. You were never meant to shrink because the love assigned to you was never meant to require the disappearing of yourself. And now, with the Page of Cups before us, there is something gentle being placed in the center of this message. This card carries the image of a tender offering, a heart learning how to speak, a feeling that may begin softly, almost quietly, but carries sincerity when it is held with maturity. And that is important, because the love coming toward you does not have to arrive as noise. It does not have to prove itself by overwhelming you. Sometimes the first sign is a softer conversation, a message that feels different, an apology that is not used to reopen the wound, but to honor what was felt. A man learning that your heart is not impressed by performance anymore. It is moved by truth. And my dear, this is where everything returns to the 10 of Cups. Because that card was never asking you to chase a dream that demanded your self-betrayal. It was showing you a kind of love where your spirit can rest, where your crown is not treated like a threat, where your standards are not negotiated like they are a problem that must be solved. The right love will not make you bargain with your own worth. It will not say, "Be less wise, so I can feel less exposed." It will not say, "Be less deep, so I do not have to meet you deeply." It will not say, "Be less sensitive, so I never have to be careful." No. The man who is meant for you will rise because he understands that your sensitivity is sacred. Your strength is sacred. Your softness is sacred. Your boundaries are sacred. And the delays you have lived through were not proof that you were unwanted. They were protection. Protection from unions too small for your spirit. Protection from hands that wanted your warmth but could not honor your healing. Protection from rooms where you would have had to shrink just to be chosen. But you were never created to be chosen at the cost of losing yourself. You were created to be met, to be seen, to be loved in a way that lets your whole body exhale. So let this message settle somewhere deep inside you. You do not have to lower your crown to make love easier for someone who is not ready. You do not have to become smaller to be held. The one meant for you will not ask a queen to come down from her worth. He will rise until he can stand beside her.